If there'll be something interesting, I'll call you, huh?
Вы здесь работали?
Да.
На 22-й?
22-й, да.
А 205-ю шахту вы помните или нет?
Которую?
Вот следующая была
Он
там.
говорит пятая, да-да-да, он
Да.
говорил пятая.
Вот.
Я-
Пятая шахта.
Там где это большой... мой отец чистил лампочки для шахтера.
Ага, это в
чистил
Ламповой
это.
он работал.
Ламповой.
Шахту закрыли.
Я знаю.
Естественно, здесь никого ничего нету, ни рабочих, ничего. Вот это все ликвидируется. Есть факт благодаря вам, то есть Америке.
Да.
Да, вот. Угольная промышленность в России вся закрывается только из-за Америки.
Из Америки.
Невыгодно Америке вот. И в результате у нас люди остаются без работы.
Без работы. А где котельня?
Котельня вот перед вами, вот еще труба сохранилась.
Ага. Там, я посмотрю, там.
Пойдемте, пойдемте. Женщины стояли, когда
Да, женщины породу
выбирали. Вот это породовыборка
Да,
по-простому. Вот. И туда вот вагоны ставили и в вагоны грузили. Вот
Это
такая схема.
Это я помню. I asked about the jail because I was there 10 days, but because I went to Chelyabinsk without a permit, and I brought a letter from Chelyabinsk that I can get employment there. So I gave it to my commandant. He said, okay, but how did you go to Chelyabinsk without a permit? And then my mother came screaming to the police why they locked me up. So they locked her up for 5 days because she was screaming, she was fresh. In jail on the wall is written, что здесь был не забудет, кто не был, тем будет.
Whoever wasn't here yet is going to come.
I was encouraging.
You got 10 years. They give you 10 years. This is knowledge. And the 9th year, to let you know that they gave you, so if there's another court on you, you didn't know, they give you another 5 years.
But actually going to jail was not the worst. The worst was when they send you away. But they send you away. They send you to Siberia and throw away the key.
There's no coming back, forget it.
I used to come from that direction because I remember the position of the dining room. I came here with the horse and buggy, and I don't remember where I parked, but I remember the dining room definitely, and upstairs the shower room too.
Вот здесь
Это баня была.
баня, она и сейчас баня
Сейчас
была.
баня?
Да, да. Ну сейчас уже воды там нету. но
Нету, а
еще
щас-
помещения остались.
Yeah. Это столовая была.
Нет, нет. Это был зал. Здесь собрание.
Собрание, да.
Вот, здесь вот стояли скамейки, стулья, здесь люди сидели. Вот заодно нашего помню Владимира Ильича, правда, не похожий.
But I remember having meetings here that you work for the government and you have to do your part. And if you don't work, you'll never get out of here. They told us, you get used to it, if not, you drop dead here. But God made it different. All these people that are on this table, They worked here in the shaft and they got killed in the war between 41 and 45.
We worked there through the summer, which was not too bad. Then when the winter came around, it was really bad because it was very cold. It was so cold that sometimes when you spit down, that a piece of ice fell down.
The cold lasted for a very long time, from, I guess, early November to late in March.
I remember going to work 50 below zero. I packed my face up to the eyes, and here up to the eyes, all you can see is the eyes.
The policy, for example, was that you didn't go to work when the temperature dropped to minus 40, and then nobody went, minus 40 degrees centigrade.
There was only one thermometer that showed the temperature in the village on the office window by the nachalnik from the settlement. When it was colder than that, he used to take in the thermometer so people couldn't see how cold it is, and we still had to go to work. We had one well for the whole settlement. With the old type, we had to lower a bucket into the well and pull out by the with a rope. We had to pull out a bucket of water, and everybody, of course, was spilling a little bit water. And around the well, which was like maybe 6-8 feet wide, formed like a mountain of ice.
And it was a really treacherous thing to get to crank the wheel and get that bucket up and not spill it on yourself, and not to slip and let the bucket go, because then the crank could kill you.
When we were in Siberia, there was still a contact with the family that was left behind on the German side.
To my dear brother, wife, and children, I've already written you and come again to tell you of my current situation. I've lost everything because of the war. My residence and all that I possessed have been destroyed. I fled from Warsaw to Russia, poor, with no clothes or shoes. The war made me destitute. Nobody knows what's happening with anybody. The old houses are gone, and everyone fled, not knowing themselves where to.
We got sometimes a letter. Of course, everybody was afraid to write the truth, if they are well or if they are hungry or not.
These days I am in the Urals, in the coal region. My husband works in the coal mine. I work on the roads, digging ditches. We don't know yet what our wages are, but you're surely aware that we must work.
They said very little about the conditions and political situations. They never touched that subject at all.
There was one postcard from my father's father, and he wrote in that postcard that we envy you being in Siberia.
Great cold will soon set in here, and none of us have clothes or shoes. My heart pains me for my 3 children. If we do not receive clothes for the cold weather, we will perish. It would be best if you could help.
I had a letter from my sister. She was older than me. And she was writing to me, "You were always brave, and the world belongs to the brave. That I ran away. She did not."
But that was the last time that we ever heard from our family.
On June 22, 1941, the war in Europe greatly expanded as Hitler attacked the Soviet Union, causing Stalin to enter World War II.
In 1941, Germany attacked Russia. We found out about it immediately. It was the first time we heard Stalin on the radio.
Минска, Житомира, Одессы.
After joining the alliance fighting Germany, Stalin agreed with the Polish government in exile to open the labor camps and release the Polish deportees.
The commandant called everybody out and read an official decree that the Poles are being freed and allowed to leave the camp whenever they wish.
We were very, very anxious to leave that place, and we finally did.
The West was closed for leaving Russia because of war with Germany. The East was either closed or almost closed because of preparation for war with Japan, and so the Shanghai route was being closed. There was only one possibility open, and that was the southern way, through Persia.
The departure of some of the deportees occurred on Yom Kippur, the Jewish Day of Atonement, which is observed by a day of fasting.
And we walked and walked, and I had a cousin. She was 5 years old and one was 6 years old, and I was carrying her on my back because they couldn't walk so far.
We loaded up with a lot of provisions that we got from and started traveling.
And I went into a woman and asked if she can give us something to eat. And she gave us some potatoes, and I cooked the potatoes there to have food before the fast. And next day, we started walking, and the snow started to snow. And we walked the whole day.
My father went to the government. Somehow he got 2 passenger cars to go wherever we wanted.
So we came there. My father and my uncle were waiting for us. They couldn't believe it that we made it. One day it was about 35 kilometers and fasting. So they had for us some hot water and bread. And we went straight to the train.
They loaded us up on a train and we started traveling again.
We were frozen here, and we wanted to go to a warm country, and we wanted to be as close to Israel as possible. There was no Israel at that time, it was Palestine.
A lot of Jews from all over were already waiting for a train to go and decide where to go.
Well, we had 2 cars and we were 70 people. So it was 35 people to a car, 50 cars to a train. I believe it took us 2 weeks to get from here, from Chelyabinsk to Tashkent.
We really had no idea where we were going. We were going to go somewhere where it's warm, and we were going to investigate along the way how things were in every spot which we reached.
There were hundreds of other trains that we were passing by that were going the same direction. There was refugees all over the place, going south, and not only from Siberian camps, but basically from advancing German armies.
We were traveling again for weeks. We came to different states. We seen different people that we never seen before.
As we were traveling south, we found to our dismay that things are not so great.
Of course, we were hungry, so we figured if we come to the bread basket of the Soviet Union, that we'll be able to, at least not to be hungry, that we'll be able to get some food.
Every town that we contemplate staying, close to the Persian border, there was another disease epidemic. It was epidemic plague, there was bubonic plague, there was typhoid fever, cholera, and so on. So we kept going.
In that time too, every time they would disconnect some freight cars and drop off people on the way. And some people were dropped off in collective farms, which wasn't so good. But wherever they dropped you off, you had nothing to say about it.
We kept going to the last stop, and that was Tajikistan, Stalinabad.
There was one fellow who seemed quite operational, and he looked at the map. He got a map of the area, and he looked around. There was Samarkand, Bukhara, various places whose names meant nothing to us. And suddenly he saw Stalinabad. He said, well, you know, I remember Marienbad, I remember Karlsbad from before the war. Maybe this is a spa. Little did he know that Abad in Tajik means the city, and not Bad, spa, as it does in German.
They told us to get off the train doesn't go any farther.
And they said, that's it, get out.
We went out with all our little, whatever we had, and we spread it on the ground, away from the trucks, and we made camp there.
Когда мы были здесь, 55 лет тому.
Все это евреи уехали в Америку, Израиль, наверное. У нас в Ташкенте очень многие были, бухарские евреи жили, очень много их же было. Сейчас нету почти их, все уехали.
Кушать на 2 недели.
Просто нам неудобно.
Там вот чайхана есть, это истроха.
Ты знаешь где?
And they took us into a place that they call a chaykhana, which is a tea room, a tea house.
Tea houses being the central place where they all, after work, they drink tea and talk, and they watch the foreigners. So we stayed there.
Я помню, рассказывали, во время войны, вот здесь мечеть есть, мечеть. В мечети тоже евреи поселились, говорит, там, это...
Аллаху Акбар, Аллаху Акбар, Аллаху Акбар, أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله.
And they took us to a building made out of limestone, which we later found out it was a house of prayer, a Muslim house of prayer. They were giving us to lodge there.
The houses were like mud houses, very dusty.
They live a very primitive life. The conditions there are very, very poor. The population lives on the floor. They don't have chairs to sit down. It's how they are used to it.
The sanitation there was pretty poor. Open sewers and open public supply water, very primitive.
And when you walked in, the first thing, there was like the bathroom. There was like a pit with 2 boards. You could see all this, what was going on underneath, the feces with the worms.
It wasn't so hotsy-totsy, but somehow we got an apartment rented.
We had a room. We were all together, my parents and my grandparents and us. And next kibitki, next house was my uncle with his family.
Eventually, in 1942, I got the driver's license and I became my own chauffeur, a truck driver.
My brother worked as an artist and I drove a truck.
I became a student in the Stalinabad Pedagogical Institute, which later on became the university.
We both went to school and we lived in a children's home that was originally started by my father. So we lived with about 400 Polish kids, 20% of them Jewish, 80% not. And we lived like one big family.
There was not too much work you could do there. Some people were working in a sewing factory where they were sewing army clothes.
First of all, this is the material that my sister and my brother and my father and my uncles all produced on the stanop. This is from Samarkand. I've been carrying it with me for the last, 50, how many years? 55. Measuring. They didn't have a measuring, so they go like this. This was 1 meter. From your nose to the outstretched arm was a meter. These are, what do we call things that you write from children? Wspomnienia Samarkandu, you see? Samarkanda. Pamiętaj, Haniu, że szczęście jest tam, gdzie nas kochają i wierzą nam. Na pamiątkę słodniutkiej i milutkiej koleżance Hanka.
The agreement between the Polish government in exile and the Soviet Union, signed in 1941, which allowed for the release of the deportees, also called for the formation of a Polish army and the distribution of desperately needed relief supplies. Outposts were established throughout the Soviet Union where Poles and Jews could acquire food, clothing, medicine, as well as register for the Polish army.
The Polish government promised the Russians that they will organize an army out of Polish citizens under the command of a general by the name of Anders, who would then go on the Russian front and fight together with the Russians.
So many Jewish people went and they enlisted in the army, but they rejected them. Not that they were not healthy or anything, they were young, but they decided not to take too many Jews anymore.
And my father actually took a train and went to Buzuluk and tried to get on it and take us with us. And they did take families, a lot of Polish families, into the army with the intention of going to Persia. They didn't take us. My impression was that they didn't take us because we were Jewish.
Even though Jews represented approximately 30% of Polish deportees in the Soviet Union, they represented less than 5% of the soldiers and civilians who left to British-controlled Iran in 1942. Among the reasons cited for this were anti-Semitism on the part